Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. Round 20, the Mexican Grand Prix. The big story at the start of the race weekend was what was going to happen to Red Bull now they'd been found in breach of the 2021 budget cap. Basically, this means that Red Bull spent more money developing their 2021 title-winning car than any other team. On Friday, Christian Horner held a press conference to explain what had happened. Red Bull and the FIA have come to agreement on what the punishment should be. The FIA deemed that Red Bull hadn't tried to cheat or tried to mislead them in any way. The team had thought that the numbers they submitted were below the budget cap. However, it appears they hadn't filed all of these correctly. Once the FIA had reviewed the numbers, it looked like there was an overspend of around $500,000. The punishment for Red Bull is a $7 million fine and a 10% in the reduction of the wind tunnel allowance that they would have had for the next 12 months. This is fairly significant because it will impact next year's car. It'll probably also hamper the 2024 car development. While Red Bull feels the punishment they received is quite harsh, the rest of the teams don't feel the FIA have gone far enough. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. One of the best parts of the Mexican Grand Prix are the fans. There's an incredible atmosphere at the track and in the city at large. This year the race nearly coincided with Día de Muertos, but a lot of that celebration seeped its way into the paddock. Many fans were dressed in costume, and there was a carnival-like feeling on the grid. Here are some of the amazing costumes and fancy dress outfits worn by some of the fans and people in the paddock. It was amazing to see so much color and so much festivity. In addition, there were people wearing Mexican wrestler outfits, and we even had some actual Red Bulls. Several of the fans had large cutout faces of drivers and celebrities, and that made quite a cool shot. The best place to watch the race from is Forest Sol. This is a large amphitheater at the last part of the track. The sound from the fans around the stadium is deafening when Checo appears. There are loads of bars below the amphitheater, and this makes for incredible atmosphere. Not only is it a wonderful spectacle to experience, but it's also a great place to photograph from. This shot of Perez entering the stadium gives you an idea about how vast the complex is. And it was full every day, not just on race day. Shooting from the top of the stadium, you get some great shots of the cars going below you. Here is Charles Leclerc passing between the shadows. This is taken at a very fast shutter speed, and I wanted to make sure that the car and the shadows weren't moving at all. It is possible to shoot this with a slow shutter speed, as you can see in this shot of Lewis Hamilton. I've taken this at a 30th of a second. I've increased the darks to make the image a bit more dramatic. Free Practice 1 saw a lot of young drivers taking part. There's a rule this year that says that every driver has to give up their seat for one free practice session during the course of the year. And as we're getting towards the end of the year, lots of drivers haven't done this yet. After the Mexico Grand Prix, only 3 teams have completed this. That's Mercedes, AlphaTauri, and Williams. That means at Abu Dhabi, the remaining 7 teams will probably be running a young driver. I doubt any of the teams will have a young driver in Brazil. Brazil is a sprint race, and FP1 is the only time that the teams have to prepare the cars for qualifying. In Mexico, we saw Nick de Vries, Jack Doohan, Pietro Fittipaldi, Logan Sargent, and Liam Lawson all take part. Liam Lawson had a particularly scary moment when his brakes were on fire in the stadium section. His car slowly drove up to the side of the track with plumes of smoke coming out of his brake ducts. I managed to get this shot of flames coming out of his wheel. It must have been a bit terrifying for him seeing smoke coming out of his fires and his brakes not working on a track like Mexico, which is very fast. I spent free practice in the pits, and I got this shot of Lewis coming out of his pit box. I've shot it at a 10th of a second, focusing on his helmet as he comes out of his box and turns into the pit lane. The pits were quite dark, they were in a bit of a shadow at this time, and that allowed me to really reduce the speed of the shot. The circuit's mainly triangular shaped, with 2 main straights and then some wiggly bits connecting them. All those corners give you a lot of opportunity to shoot cars in front of other cars. Here is Nicholas Latifi blurring in front of Lewis Hamilton. This shot is at a 10th of a second. I'm tracking Lewis's car as he goes to the corner, but Latifi's in front of him and is going in the opposite direction, so it's blurring out a lot more. In terms of fashion this weekend, we had Lewis wearing a rose-pink Dior combination on Friday. Then on Saturday, this sort of fishnet teal top by Acne Studios. Then on Sunday, this all-white outfit by Masson Margiela. As you can see, the crowds got a bit bigger day by day. And it actually got a bit hectic on Sunday, with crowds rushing the drivers, asking for selfies and autographs. It's not necessarily a uniquely Mexico Grand Prix issue. It's happened at quite a few races this year, where fans aren't giving drivers their personal space, where the demand for selfies and autographs becomes a little bit too aggressive. It resulted in a number of drivers calling for the FIA to do something to help control fans. I hope it's something that will change, because it's not great for us photographers because we don't get a clear shot of the drivers, but it's also not great for them. I can't imagine it being nice for them to want to be in the paddock when they know they're going to be swamped. And that just means that they're going to spend less and less time interacting with people. Apart from some relatively small amount of overexcited fans, we did have some amazing treats in the paddock. There was a taco stand, there was a Heineken beer stand, there was a mezcal cocktail stand, which for some reason was always closed when I went past. But the one I enjoyed the most were these nitrogen treats from Ice Cream Nation. This is Nutella-flavoured nitrogen ice cream. It's absolutely brilliant. In the driver's market, there's still one seat unresolved at Haas. The choice appears to be between incumbent Mick Schumacher or Aston Martin reserve driver Nico Hülkenberg, possibly Daniel Ricciardo, but that's looking more and more unlikely. Mick Schumacher didn't have a particularly strong race, and he hasn't had a particularly strong season. He's only scored twice so far this year. Haas need to decide if he has the potential to improve for next year, or if they want to go for somebody more experienced like Nico Hülkenberg. Behind the scenes, there's been a lot of interesting developments. Mercedes have had two reserve drivers, Nick de Vries, who's on his way to AlphaTauri, and Stoffel van Dorn, who's now moving to Aston Martin. This could free up Nico Hülkenberg to move over to Haas. The changes also mean that there's now no development driver at Mercedes, and this might free up a move for a reserve position for Daniel Ricciardo. Obviously, I'd prefer to see Daniel racing next year, but a reserve position at Mercedes wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. He had a good race. Apart from knocking Tsunoda out, he did manage to finish ahead of his teammate, which is quite unusual for him this year. I got this shot of Lando Norris after qualifying, where he was 8th. He would go on to finish the race in 9th, being a lap down. I like the dramatic background of this shot. He's had his normal helmet design enhanced by a bit of graffiti, possibly by Jimmy Paints, who was in the paddock this weekend. The crowd is definitely here to support local hero Sergio Perez. His face is on billboards throughout the city, posters, street art, everywhere you look, there's a picture of Sergio Perez. He didn't disappoint his fans, finishing in a strong 3rd place. I took this shot of him entering the stadium section late on Friday afternoon. We had another extended free practice session, and there was brilliant light towards the end of the day. Midway through this race, I thought Lewis was going to win. He had just changed to hard tyres after starting the race on mediums. Max had started on softs, gained track position, and then he'd moved on to mediums. And I thought that there was no way that a one-stop with soft and medium could last the entire race distance. I was expecting Max to come in again for a new set of softs, and then we'd have this epic battle between Lewis, who had been in lead, and Max in 2nd place, but on faster rubber. Unfortunately, that never happened. Somehow, Max made his tyres last all the way to the end, winning the race by what looked like a very comfortable margin. This is Max's 14th win of the year. That's the most wins by any single driver in a single championship year. It just shows how utterly dominant Red Bull and Max Verstappen have been this year. This is a shot of Max going into his pit box, about to have a pit stop. I've positioned the camera really low down. This makes the shot much more dramatic. I'm using a very wide angle lens, a 14mm here, and that gives you a lot more space around the car, which is quite good in this situation because we're remarkably close to the vehicles. Max has a new gold helmet this weekend, celebrating his 2nd World Championship. It looks really good. It more or less follows the same design as his previous helmet, this time just in gold, but he also has the word World Champion written on the top. He was very pumped up on the podium. The podium here is very dramatic. The drivers are raised on small elevated platforms, and they raise the entire winning car onto the platform. And they position it in Forest Arena, which is quite unusual, because usually the podium is opposite the start-finish straight. This is an amazing move by the organisers. It really makes the crowd feel part of it. Thousands of people rushed the track. After the podium celebration, there was a huge party headlined by Martin Garrix, the Dutch DJ. Thank you for watching my review of the Mexican Grand Prix. I really hope you've enjoyed it. What did you think of the race? Do you think Red Bull's punishment in the budget cap breach is fair? And if you were attending a Day of the Dead party, what costume would you wear? Please do let me know in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe. It really helps me build the channel. If you'd like to buy any of my photographs from the Mexican Grand Prix, there's a link in the description below. Unfortunately, I won't be going to the Brazilian Grand Prix. Abu Dhabi is my next race. I hope you haven't been too distracted by the birds and beasts around me this evening. So until the next one, thank you very much and goodbye.